Hey, hello. Cindy Daychuk here with Queen Bee Creations. And today we're going to be doing a project based on, and let me get this name right, based on a video that I saw done by Fruitful Life Studio. I like to give credit for where I get some of the craft ideas. I've never tried this. I've been dying to try this. Now this is one of two different projects I want to do with mirrors. One, I'm waiting for my new decoupage papers from Jamie Ray Vintage. So when those come in, we'll be doing another mirror, but a totally different kind of activity. This one, we're going to be taking old picture frames with the glass insert. We're going to be turning these into mirrors. So it doesn't matter what the picture looks like. We're not going to be using that. So these are a couple of frames that I got from my local Value Village. Go to any thrift store. What you're looking for is a nice frame. And I figured that as long as I was getting out all of the materials to do this, I might as well do two. So I'm looking at painting this big frame white and this smaller frame black. And then I like having the gold peeking through, so we're gonna do some distressing. But I thought that I'd show you some of the lead in to this because we gotta get them out. And that means taking off some of the backing. Now this one seems to be wanting to loosen all on its own, which is great. So I'm just peeling this away. If this tape was not dry and coming out on its own, then I would take my X-Acto knife and slice down along the edging because I'm looking to be able to get to this. I want to take all of this backing out. I want to keep it because that's what's going to be able to keep my mirror that we're going to make in there. But I need to be able to access it. So take our screwdrivers and we're just lifting these staples out of the way. I don't want to pull them out if I can avoid it because they're just a pain in the neck to get back in. And I'm lazy that way. So we just want to be able to get them to release enough that we'll be able to remove all of this stuff and gain access to our glass. And it's way easier to paint the frame when the glass is all out of the way and I don't have to worry about wrecking it. So this first part is just simply, oh, I gotta get that staple up a little bit. And sometimes they staple through some of this cardboard, so just kind of bear with it. I have a little table down here that I'm gonna keep all of my cardboard and, you know, I gotta tell you, I hang on to these kinds of things because you never know when I wanna do something, maybe a decoupage activity, and unless it's really horrendously ugly, and then I just throw it out. All right, so then I'm going to take out my glass and pop it over to the side. And then I've got this nice, big, beautiful, empty mirror. This one is going to be painted black. This one's gonna be my black one. And I am simply going to do the same thing to this big one. And I'm gonna be painting it white. I would expect both of them will need either one really good coat or possibly two coats of paint. Because I'm going to be wet distressing them, I don't need to have full coverage because I want to be exposing some of that gold, in which case taking the extra time and paint to paint them fully to expose it doesn't become necessary. But I do want to get a nice, smooth, even coat on, and I do as many coats as I need to make that happen. We are back and we have our picture frames completely painted. I did 2 coats of the black and just kind of roughly touched up in some spots with the white. The next step for these, I'm gonna move some of this stuff out of the way, is simply to distress them. Now you could do a dry sanding if you'd like, but I find it much easier on intricate things like this to do a wet sanding. And it's less messy, less dust. All I'm looking at doing is I've just got some baby wipes, brand of your choice, and I'm just going to lightly rub in the areas that I want to remove the paint. So I'm going over just lightly over the top, hitting the high spots to be able to remove some of that DIY paint, highlight some of the details, bring back a little bit of the gold. Sorry, let me do this on a section that you can be watching me on. And it really is just that simple. If you find that you rubbed a little too hard, you took off a little too much, just let it dry, paint it again, and start over again. So it's not something that you need to worry about or could really mess up in any way, because it's all fixable. So we're just looking at rubbing on those highs, exposing a little bit of that gold, which also then brings back some of the details on that frame. One of the reasons that I picked these frames to begin with was because they had a lot of the molding. They weren't just a plain simple frame, and you can often get them fairly inexpensive at the thrift stores, and especially if they have really ugly artwork in them, because then people don't want to buy it because of the artwork. And we're using everything but the artwork. So, okay. So for this step, this is all we're going to do. We're going to rub this. We're going to take off a little bit of that finish, expose some of the details with the gold. Then we're going to let it dry. And then we are going to apply wax to seal it. So I'm using DIY wax in clear. You can use a wax of your choice, or you could use a polyacrylic. Just a nice clear one that you're comfortable with, that doesn't yellow, and you could seal with that. I'm going to be sealing with wax, which means I'm going to brush the wax on. I'm going to wipe off the excess with a cloth. I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm just going to buff it smooth. And those are the steps for our picture frames. And I'm just kind of outlining that quickly because really the main part of the craft is the mirror part, and that's the part that I want to get to. So this is just our prep so that we have a beautiful frame to be able to put that fabulous mirror into. But now you know the steps and you're all set to go. Once we have our frames all done, they've been painted and sanded and waxed and buffed, they look awesome. The next step is to start on our mirror. And what we're going to do is kind of do an aged mirror look. You know when you get the really old mirrors, they've got worn areas, and it's kind of got this crazing look. You can't quite see images and things. That's what we're after, because this is a decorative mirror. It's not necessarily one that we definitely want to be looking at ourselves in. So to make it a little bit more interesting, we are going to be using some stamps from IOD. Now you can use any of the stamps. So whatever you have on hand is good, and whatever look that you're after. So it's not a, gee, you have to replicate or you have to buy particular stamps to be able to do it. Now, I've got a piece of acetate down here that I'm just putting it on because I don't want, this is my glass for my white frame. It's 14 by 14. The glass for the black frame is 12 by 12, so a little bit smaller. So I'm probably gonna do 2 different designs. On this one, this particular design kind of fits almost right across. And bear in mind that some of your design, some of the frame, the glass is going to sit inside your frame. Not a lot, but some of it. So to do that, I'm going to roll on some paint. And here I've got a mixture of Little Black Dress and Golden Ticket because I want a little bit of an aged look. So I want some metallic in there. The gold is really going to play off on the gold tones, the gold undertones on the frame. And I have another piece of acetate over here. So when you see me offloading, know that I'm doing it onto something, not just onto my table. And I just want to get a nice, light, even coat on my brayer. And I'm just going to be rolling that paint onto my design. Okay, so onto the underside of the stamp. I don't want it too gloopy because I'd like a bit of a crisp image. But the nice thing about this is if it's really bad when you do it, wipe it off before it dries and start again. So unlike on furniture or something else that you've painted, we have a little bit of play time when we're doing it onto something like glass. Okay. And all I'm going to do, and I'm taking that acetate and using that to help me move my pattern, I'm just going to eyeball it, lay it down, and press it in. And then just lift it off. So you can see, this is the side you're going to see. You can see that design, that pattern in there, and you can see that I've got some gold, some black showing. Now I want to try just repeating that on this side. Okay. I'm just, again, eyeballing center here. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit more paint. And I want a little bit more gold over here. And roll that onto my stamp. So what we're looking at doing is laying down this paint before we start creating the mirrored effect. So that the mirror will go over this and we'll have some of this detail on our actual mirror. So it's just a little bit more interesting, a little more fun. Okay, now what I didn't check was whether or not, as I'm doing this, I'm kind of wondering, can I sort of, now one of the things that I did do was I drew just a black line down here that I use as kind of a bit of a judge for center. So as much as I'm eyeballing, I do have a bit of a cheat there. So what I just want to see is whether or not, yeah, I can do this all the way around, which I'm thinking may be kind of cool. So I'm going to go for that. A little bit more gold. Now you don't have to worry about whether this paint lies perfectly flat or full because we still have a design element going over top of it. So if it seems a little mottled, that's okay. It's going to work for you. That's sort of the middle. Because once we do the mirror effect over top, it's going to add to it. All right. So on this one, turning it around. Now, just because I forgot to mention earlier, do bear in mind, you want to have cleaned your glass first. You want to do this on clean glass because you cannot clean it after we start doing the painting without taking all of the paint off or the design elements off. And certainly we're going to be doing all of our mirror effect over top of it, which just means any dirt that's on there is going to be trapped within that effect. So definitely clean it off first. You can see how well this shows up now that it's dry, and I really like the two-tone look of it, the gold and the black. I'm going to explain the process to you, and then I'm going to pull you in closer so you can see it happen. We're going to do two things. We are going to take a mixture of 50% water and 50% white vinegar, and we're going to spritz this just very lightly. And then we're going to use our mirror effect finish. So we're going to spray this on. Now, I know that there's, this is a Rust-Oleum mirror effect. I know that there's a Krylon. I'm assuming any of them work just as well as the other. So whatever you can find, I will put a link in, but whatever you have, use it. So we're going to do this lightly, then we're going to mist this lightly, and then we're going to dab just at some of the main spots. Gonna let it dry. Then I'm gonna do it again. So minimum 2 times, maybe as many as 3. So we want lighter coverage rather than really, really heavy coverage. Okay? And then we just let them dry. And then once they're dry, we're gonna spray paint the whole back black. So that's it. Spritz, spray, dab. Spritz, spray, dab. Let it dry, and then spray it all black. Okay? So that's what you're going to be watching. That's what we're going to be doing. And that's what's going to give us an awesome effect. Okay, time for the big reveal. These have dried overnight. So you saw spritzing them with the vinegar and water, and then lightly spraying with our mirror effect, and then dabbing where some of the bubbles appear. So that's where I was dabbing, is wherever there's some of the big bubbles. Let it dry. Do that again. So I did that twice, and then let it dry, and then I did kind of just a straight overall coat of some of the mirror effect without any of the vinegar, just to be able to hit some of the spots that weren't covered. And then once that was dry, just with a plain matte black. And then this is the effect that we get. So you can see we get that aged, I mean, we've got some glare from the overhead lights, but we've got that glazed, kind of that speckled look of that aged mirror. That's because of the vinegar. If you just want a straight mirror effect, don't use the vinegar and water. Just do the straight spray. But I love that kind of antiqued mirror look. It still works as a reflective surface. I mean, you're not going to want to do your makeup in it, but you can see the stamping that we did. Awesome. And then these are just going to, let me reach over for it. This is just going to pop into our frames. So this one happens to be the black frame. We're just going to pop it down into that finished frame, put put the rest of the backing items onto it, and look how gorgeous that's going to be. Such a fun little craft. I hope that you guys give this a try. This was my first time doing this. And you know, if I mess it up, I'm gonna show you. It was not mess upable. It was pretty straightforward and pretty easy, and definitely a technique I'm gonna do again. Especially I'd love to get maybe like a nice long frame that I'm going to do. So pick up some old frames at you know, the Restore, at garage sales, at Salvation Army, or whatever thrift store is near you, and take a look at giving this a try. I think it's going to be a fun addition to your decor. You're going to love it. I love it. As always, check out the supplies that I have at queenbeecreationshome.com. And until then, keep crafting, and I'll see you next time.